The coffee shop just outside Fort Benning's main gate had always been neutral territory, a place where officers and enlisted personnel could shed their ranks for a few moments of normalcy. But nothing felt normal when Staff Sergeant Derek Coleman's hand connected with the young woman's face, the crack of impact silencing every conversation in the room. She'd been sitting alone, working on a laptop, her civilian clothes and quiet demeanor making her invisible in the way that women in military towns often tried to be. Coleman had approached her with the swagger of someone who'd gotten away with too much for too long. His reputation preceded him, 8 years in service, 3 formal complaints that had mysteriously disappeared, and a pattern of behavior that everyone whispered about, but no one seemed able to stop. When she'd politely declined his aggressive advances, his expression had darkened. When she'd firmly told him to leave her alone, he'd grabbed her arm. And when she'd pulled away, documenting the assault with her phone, he'd struck her across the face hard enough to knock her from her chair. Her head striking the table corner on the way down, the coffee shop erupted. 2 young privates rushed forward, pulling Coleman back as he screamed obscenities. The shop owner called base security. The woman sat on the floor, blood trickling from a cut above her eye, her hands shaking as she held her phone steady, still recording, her face pale but her jaw set with determination. Coleman laughed even as the privates restrained him. He'd been through this before, knew how it worked. His company commander would smooth it over, call it a misunderstanding, maybe give him some extra duty. That's how it always went. Women complained, reports were filed, and then nothing changed. He was too valuable, too experienced, too well-connected to face real consequences. Base security arrived within minutes, took statements, separated the parties. Coleman was still smirking when they loaded him into their vehicle. The woman refused medical attention initially, insisting only that everything be documented, that every witness statement be recorded. There was something in her voice, a quiet authority that made the young security officers take extra care with their paperwork, though they couldn't quite explain why. 17 minutes later, 3 black SUVs arrived at the base commander's office. 3 generals emerged, their faces carved from stone, their movements urgent and purposeful. General Patricia Morrison led them, her 3 stars gleaming in the afternoon sun, her eyes carrying the cold fury of a mother and the calculated rage of a commander. Within the hour, Fort Benning was locked down. No one in, no one out. The base commander, a full colonel who'd been preparing to play golf, suddenly found himself standing at attention while 3 generals tore through every file, every complaint, every buried report related to Staff Sergeant Derek Coleman and the command structure that had protected him. The young woman Coleman had struck wasn't just any civilian. She was Captain Jennifer Morrison, currently on leave while recovering from injuries sustained during a classified operation in Eastern Europe. She was also the daughter of General Patricia Morrison, though she'd spent her entire military career refusing any special treatment, insisting on earning every rank, every assignment through merit alone. Jennifer had been at that coffee shop working on her master's thesis in military justice, specifically researching how sexual assault and harassment complaints disappeared within the military system. Her research had been personal, driven by the stories she'd heard from fellow servicewomen, the patterns she'd recognized, the system she'd sworn to change. Coleman's assault had been his final mistake. Jennifer's recording, combined with the witness statements and the general's investigation, unraveled everything. They discovered a network of protected predators, of commanders who'd buried complaints to protect promotion rates, of a culture that had allowed men like Coleman to hunt with impunity. By evening, Coleman was in custody facing military and civilian charges. His company commander was relieved of duty. The battalion commander was under investigation. 7 other soldiers came forward with complaints once they realized someone was finally listening, that the system might finally work the way it was supposed to. General Morrison stood beside her daughter in the base hospital, watching as medics finally treated the cut above her eye. Jennifer hadn't wanted to use her connection, had tried to handle it through proper channels like any other soldier would. But her mother had taught her another lesson that day, that sometimes rank exists not for privilege but for protection, not for personal gain but to fix broken systems that destroy good people. The lockdown lasted 3 days. When it ended, Fort Benning had new leadership, new protocols, and a new understanding that no one was untouchable, that every complaint mattered, that the daughter of a general and the newest private deserved the same protection, the same justice, the same respect. Coleman's smirk had vanished the moment those SUVs arrived. He'd finally learned what everyone should have taught him years ago. Actions have consequences, and some lines should never be crossed. If this story resonated with you, hit that like button and subscribe for more powerful stories about justice, courage, and standing up for what's right. Share this with someone who needs to hear that speaking up matters, and drop a comment about why military accountability is crucial. Let's support those who fight for change from within. Subscribe now to keep these important stories in the spotlight.